2, council meeting. I'm not aware of any changes to the agenda we have in front of us. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
We don't need to untable.
When we get there.
Let me get there.
All right.
Tom and Ed, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Next item, communications. Is there anybody that would like to address the council on any item not on the agenda?
What does the agenda look like?
Or copy of the table?
We have to fill out a form, Jim,
I'm sorry, Dan?
did you say you have to fill out a form?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Anybody? No? All right. Next item, introduction of the administrative assistant, to the police department, Tasha Whitman.
I just want to let council know that we formally made an offer to Tasha Whitman for the position of administrative assistant. She has accepted that position and will begin working for us November 30th. 30.
That'll be a great add for the staff. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Next item is a consent agenda, approval of council minutes from our October 19th council meeting, as well as October 19th full-time session, and approval of liquor license for Lincoln Wine Bar.
I will move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we're at the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to remove this from the table.
I'll make the second thing.
Scott and Tom? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 1, public hearing for the amendment to the comprehensive plan and land use map for the creation of the Highway 30 bypass overlay district. This is now an open hearing, so I would invite anybody from the crowd, whether in person or online, to speak before council. I would remind everyone in person and online, limited to 5 minutes. As well as, obviously, we have the letters to the, letters to the editor, shared with the council. So we have copies of those, as well as we watched the 2 videos that Chris led earlier as well. So I would invite anybody that wants to speak before council to do so. Chris, is there anything that you wanted to add prior? Can you get the microphone, Chief? Put it by.
Businesses like Silver Spider,
Vernon City Council members. Tonight we stand before you both in person and via Zoom, raising our collective voice and hoping against hope that we will be heard. I beseech you to vote no tonight on the bypass plan as it is currently laid out, and ask that any language contained in the plan that opens retail outside of the town center be removed. Uptown business owners put our hearts and souls into the work we do. We have been brought to our knees this year with the pandemic and the derecho in August. We are asking that you stand behind us now and hold us up instead of constructing another roadblock. Communities across Iowa and the nation have been put in similar positions, making a decision very much like the one being made here tonight. The majority of those cities who have chosen to develop along new thoroughfares have done so to the detriment of their communities. As Mount Vernon grows in population, progress is sure to come. Progress has many faces. By voting yes, we are not being progressive, rather taking the road most traveled. Progress can look like creating an indoor-outdoor marketplace where the football field uptown now exists, creating space and opportunity for business, a gathering place for community events, outdoor activities, and a place to meet friends and neighbors. Progress could look like a newly constructed, historically accurate building where the old fire station now stands, creating more space for retail and restaurant options. Progress can look like voting no to retail expansion happening along the bypass, working together toward new and innovative ideas to continue to be a leading example of what progress can truly look like. Andrea Gorsh, owner, K Apothecary.
So I see Andrea's persona on the meeting, and thank you, Andrea, for your agency.
I assume Chris is done? Yes. Is she done? Wait just a moment. There. Stop. Sorry.
Doug, have you got your audio on your computer? No?
Okay, after that show, I would invite the first individual who would like to address the council to come up tonight. Stand, please. Name and address for all of us to speak.
So I've got a letter that I wrote to the Vernon-Lisbon Sun when this all started, and I'd like to read it first, get it into the public record. So I think there's some things that need to be remembered for looking back on this time period.
Chris can't hear him right now.
You're not hearing it at all. Can you step closer to the chair?
Sorry, Stan.
It's all right. Sometimes it's better that way.
You want to check the mic?
Check. 1, 2, check. Yeah. Check 1, 2. So anyway, I just want to read it in. I think that some of these letters together are going to really matter in years to come. And you're looking back and looking what happens as a result of tonight and the weeks that follow. Something is going to happen. It's going to be significant. Either the risk we're taking is going to pay off, or we're going to see happen what happened across the country with people like myself and other folks in Mount Vernon who do a lot of travel. We talk a lot about the cities that we see when we're running around North America. And oftentimes it comes back to the differences between Mount Vernon and those other places. And those other places are hurting in ways that you've all seen. You don't have to go on the highway to Annamosa to see what happens when you make some mistakes in the bypass. And my feeling is, from everything that I've seen around the country and those conversations with these Mount Vernonites that have done the same thing, is that I think it's important that we look back and that we are able to look back on this time period and see where everybody's at on it. I read this letter from the letter of the Sun, 10/16/20. Many people in Mount Vernon were recently surprised to hear unexpected news about the proposed development on the bypass outside of town. And some of those people are business and building owners in our uptown neighborhood, home of many unique shops, restaurants, and bars. One of the primary reasons our community is frequently recognized by national organizations and periodicals for its quality of life and economic vibrancy. The proposal, which was passed by one vote at a meeting of planning and zoning, is understandably perceived as a threat by people who have invested a great deal of time, energy, and money into uptown. Many times over the last few weeks, I've heard people suggest that the uptown merchants and building owners are somehow responsible for not having known about the meetings that brought us to this point. When I hear elected officials, committee members, and others asking now, where were these people when we were making these decisions? My first thought is, why didn't you look around the room and ask why the people who would be most affected were not there? Why was the city not reaching out to people who are the driving force behind our commerce to make sure that they were aware of the meetings? I don't think most of us recognize the time commitment these merchants make every single day to keep their businesses and Mount Vernon itself viable and vibrant. Most of them put in long hours with few real days off. I think we forget that even 15 years ago, about the time we had a lot to drive here, by the way, much of uptown didn't exist as we know it now. And that without those merchants and their creative energy, business acumen, and long hours, there would not be a shopping and entertainment neighborhood in this small community capable of drawing regular commerce from surrounding cities and states and hosting 15 annual festivals such as Chocolate Walk, Heritage Days, Chili Cook-Off, and Magical Night that bring throngs of people and their commerce to Mount Vernon. These merchants are our economic engine, and if their buildings go dark, we are going to be in a world of hurt. As for potential distractions that kept the uptown merchants unaware, these folks have been fighting for almost a year to keep their businesses afloat during the pandemic and resulting economic crisis. Where would we think they'd been? I mean, to try and keep a business afloat right now, I know from my own personal experience, and I'm not even dependent on this town for that. It's hard. Add to that the derecho of all that followed with that. It's all well and good to say that the uptown merchants should have known, but the fact remains that they did not. It is logical to assume that the need for survival would have had them in those meetings had they known about it. And I don't think we can presume to know what will and won't negatively impact these businesses in our uptown neighborhood if the merchants who created it haven't been part of the discussion about the bypass proposal. It makes no sense to me for this planning and zoning proposal to move forward as it is. I know and appreciate many of the people involved in this process. Many good people who would not have deliberately left out or hurt their neighbors in uptown. There was no conspiracy here. But somehow, the people who should have been part of this process were left out. How we deal with that will say a great deal about our community moving forward. Will it be with compassion and inclusion, or simply dismissal? Will the people with the vision that has served Mount Vernon so well be included in the process? They most certainly should be, if only for the sake of Mount Vernon's continued prosperity, property values, and quality of life. I'll follow this by saying, these people are your neighbors. You need to all remember that right now. They're hurting. We're all carrying a lot of emotion right now because of the pandemic, and because of the isolation. These people are hurting in a big way, and they are your neighbors. And they are looking at their livelihoods going away. They're looking at the loss of their retirement, the loss of their investments, all for naught, because of the actions that are being considered here tonight. And the people should have been represented on these steering committees and the P&Z meetings. How that happened is something we should figure out. We should figure out why those people were not in those meetings. There's got to be an answer for that. But to just move forward without them being involved would just be the most small town community action that could possibly be taken. We have to be better than that. We have to listen to these people. Thank you.
Okay, yes, Barb, yes, please. Name and address.
I have been asked to read a letter.
Barb, name and address.
Oh, Barb Neal, Vernon. I've been asked to read a letter that Val Smith from Ron's wrote. She's out of town and couldn't be here tonight, so bear with me. When planning and zoning started meeting 2 years ago to create a new master plan, it was a very different world. Brick and mortar retailers were already being impacted by increasing online shopping and free shipping. But we had never heard of it as Rachel. And a global pandemic was only something in the scientific community. Now here we are in 2020. The year has brought our uptown to its knees. The master plan was finished and voted on by P&Z by a very slim margin of 1 vote. It includes adding retail to the list of business types that can build along the highway. This vote constitutes a big change in our existing zoning and could have far-reaching consequences for Main Street, business owners, building owners, Cornell College, and our town as a whole. It is hard for the merchants to fathom how this would be a good time to vote yes to a second area of retail when they are literally holding on for their life. I've heard it said that Bauman's has a very loyal clientele and would be fine against whatever entities would build along the highway. That is just not true. No business is safe right now and won't be for the foreseeable future, as we are hearing that COVID could persist into 2022. The fact that business owners were not invited to the table in planning and zoning or shaping the new plan alone should make us take pause. P&Z had listened to the concerns and possible impacts to existing businesses and current owners, stories of why they have chosen to locate here, and how these changes could make them rethink that choice. I believe they most likely would not have been in favor of adding retail to the plan. Even without business owners being included in the planning process, almost half of P&Z members were not convinced that adding retail is the best interest of our community. As a council member, this should raise the red flag for you. I would want everyone on board before I voted for something that could have such a potential impact, both personally and communally. This is not corporate America where competition leads up weak and the strongest survive. This is a small town where your vote to allow a second retail district could impact the livelihoods of your friends, neighbors, and fellow townspeople who rely on you to make decisions for them. I keep hearing, quote, "We think it could work," unquote. I would hope that you have more certainty in that before you vote for that retail. If I were voting on a decision that could financially harm you and your family, I would want to make absolutely sure that I knew my vote would be successful for everyone. I don't believe you can be, and so I'm asking you to strike the added wording of, quote, retail, unquote, from the proposed plan. Once retail has been removed, the plan can be passed. The rest of the plan is a good, solid plan that we need, and the work and the time the planning and zoning members contributed is much appreciated. Let's step back and take a breath. If you are not 100% sure that you can guarantee that a second retail area will not do harm to where our town already has, and let's face it hasn't worked for many other communities, then you should not be in good conscience vote yes for this. Many people have voiced their opinions that retail on the highway is not the right thing to come out. This vote should represent the town's wishes, and with such a vision, I am hoping that the conclusion you come to is that this issue needs more time and consideration, and that voting no to allowing highway retail is the right thing to do. Let's not let 2020 bring even more grief and worry to our
speak next? Please.
Olivia Randall. So over the past month, I have spent countless hours discussing this topic with fellow business owners, community members, council members, and of course Chris has spent a lot of time with me. From all these conversations, what has struck me the most is how seemingly insignificant this particular detail is. It's one single line, and really we're discussing just a few words of one line in a 93-page document. It's a topic that people are willing to brush to the side because people say it probably won't happen. Some retail is already allowed out there. It really only affects 50% of Main Street, and I want more retail in town. Despite this being seemingly insignificant, it's so important to stakeholders on our Main Street and our community as a whole. Those few words would mean that a second retail district could be built, potentially causing irreversible damage to our Main Street. Those few words would completely change how Mount Vernon has viewed our retail district, allowing a new overlay out by the bypass, which would allow specialty retail where it has not been allowed before. Those few words might only directly apply to 50% of our retailers on Main Street, but if that 50% of business goes downhill, what will it mean for the rest of the Main Street? If someone asked me if I would like more retail in town, I would say absolutely I do. My husband Josh and I do nearly all of our shopping in Mount Vernon because we believe in supporting the businesses we have and keeping our tax dollars local. We are still in awe with the amount and diversity of retail in Mount Vernon that we already have. But if someone asked me if I would still like more retail in town, potentially harming our uptown district, my answer would be absolutely not. I challenge each of you to really ask what Mount Vernon will gain by creating a second retail district. Will you actually get more tax revenue, or will it be addition by subtraction? Will people's buying habits actually change, or will the majority of our business still come from out-of-town customers? Will this be to the detriment of the nationally recognized Main Street? In conclusion, I again ask you to consider what adopting the entirety of this plan means. Are you sure this won't harm our community as a whole? Do you think our community as a whole will start shopping locally and supporting our retailers? Would you vote differently if you were a stakeholder on Main Street? Josh and I took a huge leap of faith a little over a year ago, purchasing a business, and we're not even 30 years old yet. And I'm really asking that each of you show the support of not only Josh and I, but all the other retailers on Main Street as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, you have your hand up next. Did you want to speak? Yes. Oh, you have your hand up next.
My person, I've been in Mount Vernon a little over 10 years, and I missed the first couple of meetings, and sorry that I did. I know a couple of business owners here in town. And I just have a couple of questions. One, is there a backlog of retail development requests that the city's trying to accommodate with making this change?
A backlog?
Yeah, you have developers,
Quite a few, yes.
they have applications in them, they're ready to go shovel ready.
They're about to say applications, no, they express interest. That's the question, well, that's.
I guess my point is, if there's not a tangible demand, I would suggest that the council take the next year and rethink what they're thinking and try to get a better idea of exactly what kind of retail they want to see out there, what that would look like, and how it could be accommodated. I've lived in two communities that were significantly bigger than Mount Vernon. Some of them were 20 to 25,000 populations that lost their downtown. They had downtown sections that were 4 to 6 blocks long, and they were decimated when they opened up large malls and strip malls along, the freeway through town. And did get increased revenue from some of the developments, from some of them because they did tax abatements and so forth. But they did get some tax increases. They also lost all of the tax money that was being paid by the businesses in the downtown section that went up downtown. And I mean, today you can fire a cannon off down the street and not go to anybody in those areas. And the other thing that it did is it expanded the footprint of the infrastructure that the city has support on basically a neutral revenue stream after the loss of the income. So in the long run, it didn't wind up improving, the expected increase in revenue and so forth. So I would say there's not a tangible demand for retail specifically out there. The council would be wise to postpone a decision on this for another year and have more of an engagement with the business owners in town and try to develop what those retail scenarios are that are needed, and actually talk to some of those businesses to see if they're interested in building or relocating. I know I heard, I think it was in one of the letters to the other, there was some mention of needing additional retail and some examples of sporting goods and camera shops and things like that. And the interesting thing about it is there was a camera store in Marion that was being forced out of its location. And one of the business owners here in town happened to call the owner of that business and say, hey, we'd like you to come to Mount Vernon. Would you consider that? And the business owner thanked him for making the contact of it, but said, my store needs more traffic than comes through Mount Vernon. So I appreciate reaching out, but in this case, it wouldn't work out for me to make that investment. So I just encourage the council to rethink this, to give, maybe another year's time to let the ideas, be thought about and really have a more concrete plan on the types of businesses and maybe even some contacts with those businesses to develop out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you state your name again? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
Mike Lacy.
Okay.
LACY.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Mike.
Hi, my name is John Schumacher. We've lived in Mount Vernon since 2009. We've had a business in Mount Vernon, Alice's Wonderland, since 2003. When we first opened our business in Mount Vernon, I had a city councilman tell me that most of the members of the council were very strategic in how they looked at things. I would encourage you guys to be strategic as well. Part of the strategic process was to identify 3 assets in this community that they considered very strategic. Those assets were the college, the school system, and the uptown business district. As such, their view guided their decisions on how they promoted, enhanced, encouraged, and protected those assets. Have we now added a 4th asset that can best be described as a freeway, as an exit off the freeway bypass? Have we considered the type of development that occurs off of a freeway bypass? We're talking parking lots, we're talking strip malls. Have we considered the type of things that make this city a success? The festivals, the antique shows, the chocolate walk. Do you think that they will be a success in a parking lot of a Kmart or a strip mall? Do you think they will be a success in a downtown that has shuttered businesses? Are people going to come from out of town to enjoy an historical downtown that consists of plywood over windows? I don't think so. Are we willing to put at risk the viability of the uptown business district? Can Mount Vernon support 2 central business districts? Are Are we willing to risk the consequences of what would happen if this town cannot support 2 central business districts? We should be using our energies to increase our tax base, to increase retail, etc., by enhancing the uptown central business districts. There have been letters written to the editor of the Sun suggesting on how we might do that. And we had a letter that we opened the meeting with that suggested how we might improve and enhance our central business district. That's what we should be focusing our energy. That's what you guys as the council should be focusing your energy, is to mobilize the community to improve. It's not about protecting certain businesses in downtown. Let's provide a hell of a lot more competition. Let's do it within the perimeter of the central business district, though. Let's not put our central business district at risk. Let's enhance it, and if that means more competition, bring it on. But let's, where people have a core community to come and shop, not where they're dispersed into a Walmart and a strip mall off the exit of a freeway. Thanks, Eric.
We all know where to stand.
My name is Tommy Overson. I'm a resident and a business owner for 16 years. These past 6 weeks, I have often regretted a comment given to me by an extremely savvy and successful community development coordinator. It reads, quote, "You're so right, Tommy, to work to retain the irreplaceable qualitative strengths of your community and its impressive Main Street district. In my years working with community development and the promotion of those communities through publications and websites we produced, we saw so many charming places like Mount Vernon around the country that were lured by the siren songs of additional tax revenue that these kinds of fringe of town developments would purportedly bring. Example after example of communities whose souls were ripped out by those strip developments exist in virtually every state in the Union, and it did not make them better for it. There is a lie that economic development professionals seem predisposed to tell at these public hearings and strategy meetings, and that is that in communities with a population in excess of 2,500 people, the bypasses and fringe real estate developments don't harm them at all, but in fact help them by bringing more traffic into the region, which will then filter into these historic Main Street regions to spend money. Don't buy it. It is a lie." End quote. To this day, no one has been able to give me an example of a community that has thrived under similar development. Where is your shining example? Nothing about this plan ensures success. It is a massive gamble. And look at what you're willing to risk. Look at the businesses that for the last 15 plus years, one of them for 100 plus years, have created the thriving uptown that you all know and love, whose festivals you, your kids, and your families take advantage of every year. Much of Mount Vernon's illustrious reputation has been built by the hard work and hours put in by your uptown merchants. Many of these merchants are annual supporters of our community development group. Many donate hundreds, some thousands of dollars annually to our CDG. This is the same community development group whose many members are in favor of competing retail that has the potential to put its supporters out of business. Is there an expectation moving forward that we should still contribute to an organization that has this level of disregard for the many businesses that have donated their time and money to help create a Mount Vernon that is now seen as a national treasure? This is a community development group that lists, for instance, these 3 examples for potential retail at the bypass: a sporting goods store, a children's clothing store, and a photo supply store. Within 25 miles, we have a Shields, a Fin and Feather, and a Dick's Sporting Goods. In addition, Fin and Feather attempted a second location in Cedar Rapids. It shuttered. The dual communities of Cedar Rapids and Iowa City could no longer support a children's gap. Given the design standards for new development, it's hard for me to believe a high-end children's clothing store in a town of 5,000 could compete with Old Navy or have a customer base to support it. University Cameron, an Iowa City institution, closed its doors in 2018 after 50 years in a university town. I do not believe any of these three examples merit risking our thriving uptown. In our discussions these last several weeks, a survey that was taken has continually been referred to. I learned from Scott that, quote, we didn't do a survey in the older email, but we did hold a series of community input sessions where we gathered information, both high-level and specific. Those results are outlined in the plan, end quote. My concern with this, the series included a public hearing number 1 and a public hearing number 2. How many community members were at those 2 meetings making these decisions? At any time when talking about proposed retail, did someone from the city or from Confluence ask the attendees if they were in favor of, quote, competing retail development, understanding that it would likely jeopardize our uptown businesses and in return our festivals and thriving Main Street, unquote? I bet not. Which brings me to one of my biggest concerns. Who formed the steering committee, and why was it allowed to move forward without one business owner represented? I want to once again thank Judy Elliott, Rich Heileman, and Matt Nelson for seeing the value in striking competing retail from this plan. It is my hope as a council whose job it is to listen to your community's voices, that you've heard the roaring boom of community opposition to this issue, that you'll take into consideration the 125 emails sent to you, that you've read the overwhelming number of attachment letters to the editor, that if you look at the social media, you'll have seen the hundreds of shares of information and pleas to put a stop to this, that there is an overwhelming wealth of support to stop this and an underwhelming, almost invisible amount of vocal support in favor of it. I'm aware that you may see a change to the plan as inconvenient. I see it as a decision of preservation, befitting this community, and the most important one that this council will be remembered for.
Hi, this is Meredith. I moved to Mount Vernon in 2004. I want to thank all the council members for their work. I know you're not doing this work because you are being paid a lot of money. You do it because you care about your community and you are giving back. And I know it's a big price commitment, a lot of reading, and I do really appreciate it. What you guys do is important, very important. And it is this that I want to speak to. Your status as a council member gives you an elevated platform when you speak as a private citizen. It is my understanding that a council person's job is to have an open mind to listen to their constituents, not to have their minds made up on an issue until all voices are heard, and certainly not to speak up as a citizen and potentially swing a vote at a P&Z meeting. Deb, you and I tend to agree on the majority of issues. If I was a member of P&Z and you came in and spoke to something I was about to vote on, I would feel the weight of your position on city council, beyond your suggestion that you were there only as a private citizen. As much as I respect you, I would feel swayed by you. I feel this was very inappropriate and you influenced the vote. Whether or not it is your legal right, it is inappropriate, and my vote
against, 4 for. And it's just wrong. I feel like it has to be said. Our small community can't support 2 different retail areas. Let's focus on our uptown, keeping it alive and vibrant. Thank you for your time.
Janet Hudak. I'm representing the Mount Vernon Historic Preservation Commission, and I believe this letter has gone to all members, and it's also a letter to the editor in the paper, but I will go ahead and read. The Mount Vernon Historic Preservation Commission, the HPC, is concerned with the proposed Highway 30 corridor plan. The existing zoning was designed to try and keep Mount Vernon's historic commercial district from dying off like so many Main Street commercial areas have in small towns across this state. As the HPC, we are not only concerned about the businesses surviving, but the buildings as well. Because once vacant, there is little incentive to maintain these buildings. Our historic districts and the historic look of Mount Vernon is what draws people to buy homes here and put down roots. New businesses in the proposed highway commercial zone may overlap in clientele with existing businesses in the uptown commercial district. These businesses are already under extreme pressure from COVID-19 and from the completion of the new bypass drawing traffic further from the town center. We hope there will be a mechanism in the implementation of the new plan for evaluating the effect of any new businesses on those already existing in Mount Vernon's downtown commercial area, and that permission will be denied to any that might have adverse effects on the viability of Mount Vernon's historic uptown. Thank you for your time and consideration. This is signed by our chair, Leah Rogers. Thank you.
Guy, the clerk.
Guy Booth, I'm a resident of Mount Vernon for 56 years. So I've seen it change and grow and become a perfect community in so many ways. I served on the commission that worked on the comprehensive plan. And my takeaway from that is that we had a great concern about quality of life in Mount Vernon. We had surveys, we had interviews, and consistently, people wanted to protect the downtown area. The city just wanted to protect the downtown area. You went through the effort and the expense of having it become an historic district. And that is important because the city also then took on the responsibility of making sure that it continues to exist and is vibrant. Now, I'm not saying that this change in zoning is the death knell. We don't know that. But we have to realize that it's a risk that is being taken. And I'm opposed to that risk at this time. If you look at the comprehensive plan, and I'm just going to take a look at a couple sections of it, future land use recommendations. Support planned business and research park development south of the city near the U.S. Highway 35 pass. They're talking about something other than retail, and that was our goal when we were doing this comprehensive plan. Support new commercial development which complements rather than replaces existing businesses. And that's the concern that our business district is talking about. So I think this is an important part of the discussion. Nobody can say whether this proposed ordinance is entirely good or entirely bad. But I think we're departing from the comprehensive plan in a way that wasn't anticipated these adverse consequences. Now, one thing that I would say is that this isn't the first rodeo for Mount Vernon on controversial zoning. And I take you back to 1985, when the city of Mount Vernon was sued by the person who wanted to have a furniture store out in the intersection. And being a lawyer, of course, I sort of subscribe to precedents and law. And what I would read to you from this decision is as follows. The zoning ordinance was designed to protect and preserve Mount Vernon's downtown business area. Thus, the businesses permitted in the HC district, that's the highway commercial district, are quite limited and mainly provided services for highway user, although some businesses that do not cater to highway users are already allowed to operate. Well, I think that's what the city council has said. Well, we already have retail out there, so what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that the Iowa Court of Appeals ruled in favor of Mount Vernon, and they said, although there is no Iowa case law on the point, we hold that Mount Vernon's effort to preserve its downtown business area is a valid exercise of police power. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to preserve a historic district. We're trying to preserve the unique retail that we have. And as the city knows, there is some retail out in the highway commercial or the highway bypass. But my opinion, it's only my opinion, is that if we now change this ordinance and make retail even more viable out there, we are throwing this presidential case law out the window, because we have now changed what we had approved by the Supreme Court in 1985. So if somebody comes in and sues us, I don't think this case law is going to stand. But if we have this major change in our zoning ordinance, I don't think we can expect to have a successful result from the Supreme Court if we are trying to do the limiting that we have historically done to protect our commercial district, which we have all invested in, the city by being an historic district, and our very many merchants who have invested so much of their time and money in. So all I am asking, as we look at this and these various reasons to examine where we are, I would propose that we delay this. I would also propose that the city become more involved in economic development. Our previous plan, the comprehensive plan, was to look for businesses that would be regional district offices or different types of things other than retail. There are other types of commercial things to do. In my opinion, the city hasn't spent much time or much money looking at recruiting businesses to come in. We could be much more active in that. And I would like to see us take a year to put some investment into looking for the businesses we want to have, rather than being open to any businesses that, hey, let's locate in Mount Vernon, whether we're competing with other people or not. In other words, we can be much more proactive in determining what is out there. So that's what I'd like to see happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. Anybody else? Ann?
Thank you, Council, and to our city administrator, Chair. My name is Mert Bowers. I'm a lifelong member of Mount Vernon, and I'm not sure, following an attorney who's had such a tremendous impact on our community. God, thank you. Thank you. Community vitality is very, very important to me. As I've shared with you, I've been a lifelong member other than when I went to college. So I remember as a child, we got groceries every 2 weeks. I lived on a farm. And I would have an ice cream
Our business district at that time has had many changes. But I also remember in the 1980s, and our business district was not full of the vitality it is today. I give a shout out to the people in our business district. This has been a horrific year. You all know that. We went through the Depression in the 1980s, so I do feel some of your pain. I would also like to share with you what I have learned about Main Street America and Main Street Iowa. When Mount Vernon became a Main Street Iowa community, it was a major tipping point for us. And we look at ourselves now and look at what has been created. We thank business people, we thank citizens, we thank the leadership of our city. One of the main purpose of Main Street America, and Janet, like you said, it is part of the National Historic Trust. It is committed to building strong communities through preservation, and that is based on economic development. They use 4 points, which we all know: our organization, promotion, design, and I believe you've done it through design with the bypass and economic development. Main Street, Iowa has been very instrumental, as I said. One day I asked Joe how much money that he has secured for our community. He's not kept track of that. But close, it's close to the big number. And I know, Olivia, you're pleased with what happened this year from Main Street, Iowa. The local, many of our communities have benefited from that. I know that Main Street America today recognizes where our businesses are. There isn't a community that's not hurting with pain like you all are. So what all their plans are, I do not know that. But I do know that we have, in Michigan, they're looking at how they can take their community assets and based on their economic development, have community transformation. And I think that's really what we're looking at here. It's pretty scary, as everybody has said. We don't know truly what the outcome is going to be, but it is a tipping point. So I said to myself, I hear about all these horrible stories about when the bypass comes through your community. What can I do for research? So of course I went to the internet like everybody does. And I chose 5 or 6 things. I chose two steps. Economic, what happens economically to cities where there is a crisis. With Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, and Nevada. It was amazing when I was reading those studies that they all looked at population base to determine what happens in their communities. They talked about destination cities. We're one of those. We're a destination city. If indeed you were a community under 2,000, yes indeed, you're going to be purged. Definitely. By bypass. But if you're a community such as a destination community, no, chances are that you're going to continue to be that destination city that your businesses, your leaders, and your volunteers in your community have worked so hard to maintain. You know, we had Mike Wagler here a couple of years ago, and he's the director of Main Street, Iowa. And at that time, the bypass had been started. And so we asked him the question, what can we expect of the community looking at a bypass and with our Main Street? He looked at us and he said, you already have a bypass. You have your Main Street. What happened? You have a bypass. Your second bypass is 3 to 4 minutes away. Strategically, if you plan well, it should not have an impact on your destination city. I always remember those words. All of the studies that I looked at said indeed that we need to have a great marquee plan and we need to have good signage. And I thought to myself, when I'm out traveling, and I think Wisconsin came to my mind, when I'm out traveling, what catches my thinking about what I want to do is the signage. And I thought to myself, how can we put signage up town that says, you're the best coffee in town? Why would I want to stop at a fast food place and have coffee? So I began to think about the signage that people on Highway 1 that come through the city, people who are on the bypass, how that affects their coming to Mount Vernon. Again, we know that our community is known as the state of Iowa, and it's also known nationally. So why would we want to risk this change? One of the things, we know we have a plan, and we know that we have some control of that plan. So having a plan is excellent. We know that it's not going to have big box in it. We don't know what type of retail. The studies I looked at, they named the retail that you get. The banks, you have places to stay overnight, you have bars, you have convenience stores, there was one other, I can't remember it right now, but I had thought they would tell me that we're going to have a fuel, or maybe we're going to have a solar fire, or maybe we're going to have a apothecary. But they didn't talk about that type of retail. We are a city of growth. And as a city of growth, we want to expand, just like Andrea said in her letter. We want to be able to expand. But you, as city council, and you as Chris, need to have money to be able to expand, to do the things, to make our side street presentable for more visitors, to take a look at how we have the decorations coming in from Highway 1, so that when I drive in, I feel good. This is going to be a great place if we went to visit. That takes money. So I see, yes, there's risk. I don't know all the answers, but I do know that there's one thing. This community supports downtown. We have citizens, we have city, and many because of the pandemic and the derecho. I mean, you can't see the light because it's dark where you are at this time. As a council, I would ask you to continue with the plan. Certainly, if there's wording changes that need to be made, but I would ask you to take that risk. Back in the 1990s, as a council member, we were asked to, it was Lynn County that was asking us, to be able to have a trail that came from Cedar Rapids through Mount Vernon to Lisbon. And of course, it was going to be on the inner. We had controversy, we had anger. I mean, all of those emotions we felt. So as a council, we said no. We took it off the table. Today, when I go to Ely, Iowa, on a Saturday or Sunday, and I take a look at all those bicycles that are there, having ice cream, Nikki would love that. Having a hamburger, having beverages, and we did not take that risk in 1990. So I would ask you to consider, yes, it is a risk, but we want to be aware of our businesses and maintain our Main Street.
Thank you. Sir?
I'm Sean Connery. Like a lot of you, I've grown up here my entire life in this community. And like most of us, I've seen us watch the Highway 35 back project not just stop here, but it's gone from Clinton all the way to Ames. And I can't remember how it's bypassed all these communities. We've all seen Lisbon, Clarence, Loudon, Mechanicsville, Tipton, all these communities that have gone outside of their downtown and lost pretty much everything. There's Pizza Huts, there's Walmarts, there's gas stations, but their downtown areas are boarded up. Regional businesses, they've turned into residential apartments, and they don't have the community that we have here. So I'm just asking you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir? Name and Wayne.
My name is Mark Andreessen. I didn't plan on speaking, so this is going to be out. But just going to speak personally, I moved last year from Connecticut. Then I grew up in Iowa, grew up in Aiken, and I've been on the East Coast, in Florida and Connecticut for about 15 years. So I moved here, and a big decision, I'm a single dad, I have a 7-year-old daughter. And here, which is a good thing here, that the schools are wonderful. We just love our small town. We love being able to drive our bikes uptown because it's an easy place that we feel safe to do. I don't know if businesses were steered closer to the highway, we would feel that comfortable, and it would be further for a lot of other people to do so as well. I work at House Days Cafe. We're working our butts off. It's been a very difficult year, obviously. We're working very hard, and we plan on keeping working hard there, and we're going to make it work. But the thing is, I've noticed is that the charm of this town is that we strive and drive on people coming to the uptown district. And we get so many people, because I talk to everybody, I'm a very talkative person. We talk to people that come from Cedar Rapids and different areas that come for that uptown charm. I don't believe that would be the case if there were, the restaurants and different things, to be allowed there. I'm all for increasing business and, business park, different things like that. But we got to be very careful. So I think we need You could tell it used to be a thriving area. Well, I tell you what, it was depressing living there. It was sad because the communities were just shut down. Or, you know, the stores that used to be there, pet stores, different things, they were shut down. It was sad. It was very sad. So for that chance to have our uptown, downtown district look like that, and before. I mean, I don't think that property, you know, home value would be good. You know, I think home value would be driven down if that's what our community looked like. Let's see here. And then just finally, you know, my daughter and I didn't know if we were planning on living here for a while. We're here. We're going to stay here because we love it. And so when my daughter told me that she was so happy to be here and so happy to move here, and she never thought that she would be so happy, that's what it means to me, and that's what this town is to me. So I just wanted to give a personal note there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Chief, is everybody on the Zoom call? What to speak? Any participants? Patrick, I don't want to put you on the spot by any means. Is there anything that you'd like to add from your vantage point? Okay. I just want to make sure you have the opportunity.
Appreciate it.
Doesn't look like it. Chief, not getting any feedback. Okay. We get everybody? Okay. That's it. I will close the public hearing. We will move on to resolutions for approval, which we will need a motion to untable this item. I would like to remind the council that this item can remain tabled, up to obviously E5, if you were to vote to untable it, and then obviously vote on this resolution. But I just want to make sure that council understands that it can remain in its current state. With that said, I will entertain a motion to untable.
I'll move to table.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. With that said, resolutions for approval. Resolution 9-8-2020B, amending the Mount Vernon Comprehensive Plan and Land Use Map for the creation of the Highway 30 Bypass Overlay District. Is there anything Chris wants to speak to on this, Chief? I'm not really sure who that is, but. Chris, can you hear us? Nathan? Yeah, I got it. Can you hear it? Yeah. We're getting the mic, just 1 second. Go ahead. Can you tell Chris to hold on a second, please? Hold on.
Hey, Chris, hang on just a sec.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
So, as I was saying, Guy Booth brought up some good points about the existing comp plan. I think the difference that's in front of everybody right now, most likely is how we feel about that in general, or the avenues in which we take in order to reach that point. All things that were said tonight are valid. I think the strong investment in the downtown and continuing to spend money in that area will go just as far, if not farther, than the zoning. Yeah.
Just keep talking to my cell phone.
So again, there are merits to all of the comments that were made tonight, both for and against. I think I would, as I stated previously at other meetings, I still recommend it as a staff person to get feedback.
He's coming on Zoom.
Are you back on?
You just keep talking to my phone.
Okay, Chris, you're on mute now.
Do you have to need a chief or is it?
I don't know. I'm here. So there's a feedback here.
All right, well, I think you got the general gist of what he was saying anyways. Whoop. All right, just keep talking to the phone and leave Zoom alone.
My recommendation of the staff is still to move forward with the comp plan. The planning commission has laid out in front of you. Again, it was a close vote. So, you can see, as we knew when we started this process, we knew that we were going to have a very close vote and a lot of people on either side of this, so that's why we started so long ago. As I told a number of people, when we started this process, nobody could have foreseen the ratio for COVID, and completely understand where everybody stands with that as well. And like I said, I don't have a whole lot of additional comments outside if you want me to answer any questions, but staff's recommendation stays the same. Planning commission recommendation was a 4-3 vote in favor of leaving the language as is, but you can do a number of things tonight. You can adopt the plan as is, the planning commission laid out in front of you. You can adopt a plan that changes. So the one line that I believe everybody is referring to is the line that Trudy made a motion to remove a portion of that failed. But you can table this item, you can consider it further. There is another part to this process. So the plan is one portion, the ordinance will still have to be changed. So there's another series of 3+ council meetings that will need to be adhered to before the overlay actually gets adopted into the zoning code.
Okay? Council, anything? Chris?
I would like to speak on this.
Thanks, Chris.
First of all, everybody's been affected by COVID. Everybody's been affected by duration. So let's get that straight right now. Not just the uptown, everybody's been affected. You should all agree on that. Also, about not being representative in the vote, it was 4-3. So you were represented. If it was 7-0, you weren't represented. So there were 3 people there that represented you. I'm pretty sure they spoke to that point. I'm speaking to this point because I've talked to a lot of people that want this, but they don't want to get the stink eye. They don't want to get the harassment because that's what they get. great. I love Uptown. I go there. And there are good businesses there. And I just don't understand why you don't think that your business is good enough to draw and keep your customers. I don't see it. I just don't see it.
Any example of other cities where this has worked?
I come from Brooklyn, Iowa, and they have no protectionism. Anybody can come in, anybody can go out. It wasn't bypassed, of course. But Brooklyn's thriving. Thriving little town. It's a great town.
I've never heard anybody say, wow, you should go to Brooklyn.
Oh, I have heard a lot of people. And Holiday Lake is there, and Cedar Rapids goes, a lot of people go down there, and they love it.
You're the first one I've heard
Well,
say that.
obviously, you don't need Brooklyn. It's the city of flags, people love it. So don't knock my town, please. I'm not knocking them out.
You guys need to cancel.
I've been 14 years in this town. I love this town. And I don't do this because of money. I get 15 bucks a meeting. And I get a lot of flack because I'm representing a group that takes a lot of flack. This city has a lot of wants. I want this, I want this. Now we want a pool, an indoor pool. You know what? That takes money. And if there's no commercial, if there's no retail in the city, who bears the brunt of this? The residents do. Their taxes go up. It's been $12.99 for a long time, and by golly, it's not going to stay that way. Not unless we get more retail and more commercial in here. And also, I have a neighbor who grew up in Iowa City. Iowa City had a big protectionism on all their downtown area. I went to the University of Iowa. That mall down there, Capitol Mall, dead. The retail, what it did, oh look, Coralville. We'll just go to Coralville. We're not going to put our businesses in Iowa City. We're going to go to Coral. Well, who's next to us? Lisbon is 2 miles of deterrent. If that business isn't put here, is 2 miles going to keep people from going to Lisbon? Because Lisbon will be glad to have that business. And so, by golly, I'll just go 2 miles. Or, what the heck, I'll go to Cedar Rapids. This community is growing, and there's younger people coming in, and they want variety. They want a choice. And that choice is going to be uptown a lot of times, too, and it's going to be for something else, too.
Why don't we bring all that retail you're saying that people want, bring it to uptown?
Because what are you going to do, tear down all the 3-4 blocks around uptown and put parking there? Are we going to build a 3-story ramp up somewhere? Well, that's going to require money. Somebody going to donate $3-4 million for that ramp? That's the deal there. Where's the parking?
Shepley's.
Shepley's, what, you're going to get 20 spots out of that?
The fire station.
Okay.
Again, I'm just stating that there's people in this town that have a voice too, and I'm their voice because they don't want to stand up there and get this. You know, I'm willing to take it.
We get this from you, Eric, why don't they?
Okay, stand quiet.
Again, that's what I want to say. This community needs a tax base, and I think uptown will be fine. And nobody can say that it won't be fine. Nobody can say it will.
I'll try to keep within the 5-minute time frame here. I want to talk as directly and as personally as possible to the business owners and building owners that are involved with this situation. I can say that I'm not nearly as invested with this as you are, and I can say that I sympathize with you and so on, but those would be hollow words. That would be meaningless because I can't feel what you're going through at this point. I believe our uptown is the envy of other communities. I'm proud Malvern receives national awards. It's a different one every couple of years. I love the vibrancy of our uptown district during our annual cycle of festivals. I don't want to see empty uptown buildings and vacant businesses. And I like how our uptown looks and want to focus on what we currently have. But I firmly believe, and this may be my roundabout decision here, that we can have a vibrant, thriving downtown area and still allow retail in our third business area. In August of 2015, when I thought about running for city council, I knew I had to ask myself two gut level questions. First of all, because the two questions that were going to be up, that were going to be gut wrenching decisions. First of all, was who was going to decide who was going to be the city manager. And second, due to the change in leadership that I'd already seen in the planning and zoning, I knew that we would get to this point at some point in time, based upon that change in leadership there. And I had to ask myself, did I want to go ahead and go through with this, or did I want to take a pass on that? And I made that decision in August of 2015 to go ahead and run for city council, knowing fully well that this decision would come up, and that this would be a come to Jesus time, to be quite honest with you. I try to make decisions based upon values, and there's a quote from Walt Disney that says, tough decisions aren't hard to make if you base them on your values. So I had to ask myself, what are my values in this situation? And in an earlier life, I started meetings in the chair that Jamie is in now with the school board with the statement that we're here to make decisions that are in the best interest of all the students in the Mount Vernon Community School District. And then would compare to opening statement at the city council meeting that we're here to make decisions that are in the best interest of all the citizens of the Mount Vernon School District and all of Mount Vernon. And so I've got to look globally on the macro level and not micro level. And that is a value that I have, and that's why I lived that value for 10 years when I was at the president and 27 years on the school board, that I need to look at the level of all the citizens of Mount Vernon School District. During my time on council, I was committed to serving the Uptown by supporting CDG. We've made some decisions with what we've done with the director who's been quoted here, as far as his salary is concerned, as far as his status with the city, putting him on the city payroll and with benefits and so on. And that was an effort on my part to put resources and the time, effort, and finances towards the community development group, which is a tool to help all businesses in Mount Vernon. It is the community development group. It is not the Uptown development group. That is a value that I have, that I want to put resources into things that I believe in strongly. And on a scale of being optimistic or pessimistic, I feel that I have generally tried to be on the side of being optimistic about this. And that's why I say that we can have, I believe that we can have a thriving Uptown district as well as allow this retail at the bypass. I realize that this is a tough decision, a tough statement to make, and I'm not sure where it's going to go from here, but that's where I'm at on that. And I know that CDG leadership may have decisions, an opinion about this. Our city manager, our city planner just mentioned that he's had a suggestion on this. P&Z has weighed in with a suggestion on this. But I need to make my own decision. I need to own it. I need to base it upon my values. And I just listed 3 of them there. And that's why I'm making the decision that I am to support a third residential, a third retail area. Thank you.
Tom, I believe that you are making a statement on your values and your values. I'm just curious. What are your values on the idea that everybody should have been represented? Everybody should have been represented.
Steph or Scott, you guys have anything that you want to share? Steph, okay, yeah.
Is that possible? I mean, I'd love to hear from anybody.
No, we're not taking questions.
Well, Eric's speaking directly to us, so I assume we could speak back to him. Is that not true?
No, it's not.
It's not. So he can say anything he wants to us.
It was his opportunity to share.
It's my opportunity to talk.
Same as Tom.
All right, I hope to bear with me. This is going to be long, but it's going to be long because I think this is important and it's worth the time. First, I'd like to state that probably more than anybody else on the council up here, I understand what it's like to run a small business, a retail business. Some of my best memories, and you may not know this about me, are of leaving middle school, which is now the First Street Community Center, and walking to my mom's antique shop, which existed on Main Street for 7 or 8 years in Mount Vernon. I understood what she went through, working late into the night to price and prep items for sale.
She didn't get paid or sick or vacation days. I even experienced it myself when I took a risk and opened a consignment store called Deja New in 2010, a block off Main Street because there were no appropriate uptown spaces available. It didn't last long, as is typical in large percentage of businesses, and it wasn't nearly as successful as many of the current ones on Main Street. Regardless, I know what it's like to shovel the sidewalks on a cold January day and not have one person come. It's depressing and thwarts the energy and creativity necessary to run a shop. In short, I respect the business owners. I want you to know that. That's why I personally invested hundreds of hours of volunteer time in the last 10 years to help drive customers to these businesses. This has been a contentious subject in the past, and I'm quite sure that no matter the timing of the decision, it would remain one that would be difficult and fraught with dissension. Also, there's no question, we talked about it, about 2020 being a tough year with COVID, derecho power outages, and closings. It's also important to note that it's been tough on other citizens as well, who have suffered from income reduction or total job loss, making it more difficult for them to support our small businesses. However, we have no control over the bypass schedule, and although it's been discussed for 30 years, when construction began, we knew it would finally become a reality within about 3 years. Now it's done, and that is what leads our schedule. We need to take action on a plan now and not slow down in order to protect the integrity of our historic downtown. If we do nothing, Lynn County could eventually control it without the limitations and specifications provided by our plan. I haven't wavered in my opinion on a plan since I first ran for city council. When I was asked about it in the League of Women Voters Forum, I responded that we need to proactively plan for the bypass and in fact to optimize the strategy around it. That's exactly what we're doing. Since then, I've further reviewed the 1995 and the 2016 comp plans. I was aware nearly 3 years ago that a bypass steering committee had been formed, and I attended the first public forum on February 21st, 2018. I also attended the planning sessions and other public meetings for which all business owners and community members were invited to attend. Those meetings were aptly documented with 8 to 10 follow-up articles in the Sun newspaper in an effort to keep the community informed. The 2016 comp plan specifically recommended that professionals be retained to partner with existing community structure to aid in defining and supporting Mount Vernon's economic plan. That's on page 54. We have done that. Confluence has been a good partner, given the opportunity to participate, listening to our concerns, and following our lead. Among those concerns was a resounding no to traditional big box stores. Confluence has been careful to follow our request, and there are no details left out. The comp plan also recommended a partnership with the Cedar Rapids Metro Area Alliance. We've also done that. I've also talked to city staff and conversed with 4 of the P&Z committee members. I've read the social media posts, the emails to me and the council in general, and letters to the editor. I've spoken with individuals on both sides of the fence, and they've also conveyed the opinions of previous city leaders. I feel my responsibility to the community is to consider all the above while giving the most weight to the 2016 comprehensive plan. It was a joint project of the mayor, city council, city staff, P&Z, and a committee consisting of community volunteers and business people. On page 39, regarding quality of life, and thank God we have references, the plan states the basic premise of the Mount Vernon plan is that the community must grow, but that growth should maintain and enhance the special character of the traditional community. This means preserving the historic features of the community while encouraging development that adds positive value to the community without negatively affecting the town district. That's on page 41. We, as a council, have followed through on the direction to preserve and enhance the uptown district. We are among our Main Street's biggest advocates, and we've proven that by the following actions. Hiring Joe Jennison, as you referred to, Tom, as a city employee and providing him with benefits. We invested in a streetscape plan for Main Street. We facilitated $125,000 in grant funding. Most of it shifted from the city budget, along with some donations, to support the businesses during the initial COVID-19 restrictions. We supported and approved the pilot parklet project with the outdoor seating this summer for Skillet and Fuel. We are undertaking South Alley improvements, and we provide funding for the CDG out of hotel motel tax dollars. The CDG, on which board I've served for over 8 years, directly supports the district in these ways. By generating nearly $10 million in community investment in the past 10 years, enlisting hundreds of community volunteers on an annual basis, investing in planting and watering flowers for the beautification of Main Street, leading uptown cleanup events from an annual to a weekly basis, planning and providing, we talked about this, 14 events through the typical year which draw people to the businesses. The events take place because of willing committee chairs and volunteers who want to provide them for the community. I would add that they do not take place because of the businesses, but for the businesses on Main Street. From what I know from 25 years of working in advertising and marketing, I know that a business cannot exist by itself. It's dependent upon consumers to be successful. Here, those consumers are largely community citizens who make an effort to support those businesses. No business on Main Street or otherwise could succeed without the support of their customers. The community deserves credit for that. The community as a whole also deserves the potential for additional jobs that will be created as Mount Vernon's economic development efforts grow. The community would gain the benefit of not only property taxes, but lost funds which currently don't sunset until June 30th, 2034. Those funds are legally allocated for 4 things, primarily streets and city-owned sidewalks, followed by the community center, parks and rec, and urban renewal. Those additional taxes would go far in helping us to get a fiber optic network in town, which is a high desire among not only citizens for a faster internet option, but a unanimous top priority of the Council's 2020 and 2021 goals. Research so far shows we might have to create our own utility company to make it happen, and it will be no small effort in terms of time and money. The community has also communicated a need for more retail choice. One person told me, we are not going to change buying patterns. And that's right. I was part of the committee in 2014 and 2015, chaired by Deb Herman, that with the help of the statewide Main Street organization surveyed the community. That survey was referenced in the 2016 plan, and it indicated a desire to update the uptown streetscape and parking, address walkability, and increase variety in shop hours. On page 55. Since 2016, there has been more variety in uptown as new shops have come in. Uptown has evolved to unique, wonderful, niche-oriented businesses. That's very different from what it was in the 1970s, when there were 2 grocery stores, a dining store, a hardware store, a laundromat, a pharmacy that also sold gift items, hair salons, doctors, and dentist offices, all right on Main Street. When I worked at Ben Franklin in the 1980s, I saw people purchase everything from bath towels to baby clothing to flower arrangements, all from one place. Since 1970, our town has doubled in size. There's proven leakage in spending dollars going out of our community, and it's going to places like Target, Walmart, Costco, Dollar General, Hy-Vee, Aldi, Amazon, and other online retailers. I would venture an educated guess that the biggest competition to Main Street right now is internet businesses, and your city council cannot control that whatsoever. The other thing I'll say about competition is this. When some of our businesses came to they were the competition. For example, other places were selling cups of coffee before Fuel opened. When Tommy opened Fuel, she and her customers created a unique community experience that was better for our community at the time. And that's why it still exists today. Our community benefited from Tommy being the competition. Our community should still be able to benefit from the best that competition offers. It's also a valid point that if we say no to retail at the bypass, as Eric indicated, Lisbon will say yes. They've proven that before. And if you are of the opinion that retail would damage Main Street, that wouldn't change just a mile away. Mount Vernon would lose the convenience, which is especially a benefit to our seniors and walking college students. We'd lose the tax dollars to boot. I would go so far as saying to our business owners that the people who sit before you on the council have been among your biggest advocates and will have no reason not to continue. The CDG exists with the support of regional and national Main Street affiliation to focus on Main Street businesses. I realize that involves trust in us as elected officials, and it should be a requirement of council members of the future. This council just completed a goal-setting exercise for 2020-2021, and among the top items was to invest in wayfinding signage, to develop a fringe agreement with Lynn County, and to create an economic development plan to pursue the right businesses for the bypass area. In approving the current bypass plan, we're actually reducing the amount of general commercial zoning that was previously planned for the area, allowing for green space and visionary concepts such as a neighborhood. And based on the detailed parking and building specs within the plan, this new area will complement the historic town we all treasure. Some people have commented that they don't want two retail areas. There's no denying that we already have two retail areas, Main Street and the Highway 30 corridor. We've already managed that. It's also important to note that the completion of the plan will take time, a lot of time. Some landowners have no desire to sell now. As many of you know and have reminded us, Mount Vernon has been named the best town to live in within the state of Iowa. Mount Vernon is unique, and I think by leveraging our history, our strengths, and marketing well, we can and will see success from both the Uptown District and the extended bypass area. I believe, as Tom does, that we can do both. I do not believe that dropping the line regarding retail sales on page 86 of the plan should happen. Some of those are already allowed per the current zoning plan, and there are many other types of personal and consumer service business types listed. I don't feel it's right for us to pick and choose which of those gets cut. It's also not our place to specifically prevent competition. That is not serving the needs of our community as a whole, and that's why we're elected. I'm confident in our ability to adhere to the bypass plan and our city manager's ability to manage it. Both prior and during construction, businesses will be checked on adherence to the plan. Applications for exceptions must first be approved by the zoning commissioner, then by the P&Z committee, then by the city council. For these reasons, my vote will be yes in support of the presented plan.
Scott, you just move it right there.
Go ahead and use this. I don't have a whole lot to add to what either Tom or Stephanie said, aside from just a couple of thoughts. I've talked to a lot of folks about this. I think we all agree this is one of the most engaged issues we've had as a council. And I think that's the way it ought to be. Having been a member of the steering committee since we started this process in January 2018, I'm fully comfortable with the process. I know 2020 threw everybody a curveball, and to Chris's point earlier, none of us could have foreseen either COVID or the derecho. But that's why we put plans in place, because you can't foresee those things. And I know that folks want a guarantee. I've had folks ask me if we can guarantee this will work. And anybody who guarantees that is lying to you. But what we can do is put the work in, show up when there's the opportunities to, and put in place the best plan that we can to follow through on what the 2016 comp plan recommended, what the 95 comp plan recommended, and what Main Street speaks to, and that's protecting our uptown. And I don't believe that we best protect it by putting it in a bubble and allowing what 2016's plan currently says can happen. This plan is, from a square footage standpoint, from a design standards standpoint, from a sheer acreage standpoint, far more restrictive than what's on the books now. And so, for that and any number of other reasons, I'll be voting yes on it.
So thank you, Paul, for being here tonight. I really appreciate all the comments. I want to ensure that I have read every email that has been sent. I have kept an open mind. I have talked to many of you personally about this topic. I have been engaged with this community through its journey, becoming a Main Street community back in 2007, serving to secure the initial underpinnings of what we know today, starting the festivals, hiring 2 different Main Street directors. So I've had your best interest in mind, and I continue to have your best interest in mind as a continued volunteer there. With Main Street, the emphasis is definitely on protecting the Main Street district. With a strong Main Street district, the community can continue to thrive and benefit and expand without fear that that Main Street district will collapse. We have undoubtedly built together something that is very, very special, nationally recognized. We're very proud of it. But we shouldn't be scared of what is possible for this community in the future. So the only thing that I really want to augment the conversation with is to remind you of the leakage, okay? I want to remind you of the hard facts. We have a leakage in retail in this community within the 5-mile radius of this community of $8.5 million. That's $8.5 million that people are choosing to spend elsewhere. You're going to ask, where does that occur? There's some big money in things like electronics and appliances. Okay, that's no surprise, right? What we do really well in building material. Oh my gosh, thank goodness Gordon's is here, right? Okay, we do really well there. We have a positive impact. People spend their money here. We have leakage in the areas of gas, clothing, sporting goods, general merchandising, miscellaneous retail, non-store retail. That kind of speaks of Amazon. And food. We've got opportunities. We've got opportunities where people are taking their money and spending it elsewhere. Is that because we don't offer everything? Maybe. Is it because people are not necessarily coming here to spend their money as much as maybe they're going someplace else, perhaps? But what we should be encouraged by that figure is there's a lot of opportunity there, okay? And I want to believe that what we can do as a council is provide the framework to guide that dollar to be spent here, rather than guide that dollar to be spent other places, because we don't have some place for those dollars to be spent. I think for that reason, I am going to vote yes as well.
Thank you. All right, with that said, council, everybody has an opportunity to speak. I will entertain a motion on resolution 9/8/2020. Would you inclined to do so?
I will make a motion to approve resolution 9-8-2020D, amending the operating comprehensive plan and land use map for the creation of the Highway 30 bypass overlay district.
And I'll second.
Second, Scott. Roll call, please, Sue.
Rose,
Yes.
Weisler,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Brattlebus.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Next item is motion for approval, consideration of claims list. Anybody have any questions, or have entertained a motion?
Make a motion to approve the second claim for the event.
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item, discussion and consideration of setting a public hearing date for the Vernon-Lisbon agreement. Please, to be handled.
You bet. Just wanted to bring council, we've been in discussions. Unless you need it. We can get that. In discussions with Lisbon City Council.
Thank you. Thank you.
Reference to the contract for the 2080 agreement and language there, we believe we're at a point for both cities, or for both attorneys are in agreement for the language to be presented. I went to the last Lisbon City Council meeting and had the conversation, they were reviewing the language, going for final approval. They have a motion to set public hearing for November 9th.
10th.
I think it's the 10th.
10th.
Or 10th, yes, but Tuesday. Very good, thank you. You better fact check me. Please fact check me. So they, for November 10th, they will be taking into consideration for their public hearing and then consideration for approval or whatever you decide to do after that, for that. Their intent was to try and get it in front of our council meeting, so that you would have an opportunity to do the same if you choose to do a public hearing, and have that consideration for the November 16th council meeting. By doing all of that, if both cities are comfortable with the agreement and where it's at, it would allow us that, they did make a couple changes to the 5% cap on the budget amount. Was one of the changes that we agreed to. And the other thing was changing your start date from 60 days, was original kind of delay period, down to 30 days. And the whole track of this is, I think initially they were kind of looking at a January 1 start date if we're going to transition over. We kind of agree with that as well. I think that it's been sitting there stagnant long enough that we probably need to get decided one way or the other. And so I'm supportive of getting it done and having it start to take effect January 1, so we can do that as well.
Okay. So we're looking for a public hearing on our November 16th.
If you'd like to set a public hearing, yes, on November 16th.
Do I make a motion?
Thank you. Thanks, Chief. Oh, do you have a question, Tom?
No, I thought I was second the motion.
Oh, yeah, got it.
All right, here we go.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
See, this is what happens.
Motion carried. I'll wait for an official motion. Next item, discussion consideration of full application number 2, All American Concrete, South Valley. I know Chris probably really is online, Sue, is there anything that we need to know, or anything we can add to? I know it's just a routine pay application, correct?
I don't know anything more than what's in the packet.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve pay application number 2 in the South Valley project to the tune of $38,704.31.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is discussion consideration of F-350 for public works. Is there any way we can get Chris? Okay.
He's on the Zoom.
I know, is there any way we can get him to,
He's talking.
no, we just can't hear him.
Here, how about this? Chris?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So we had originally planned for an F-150, and through the course of derecho and a few other things, we actually were able to
Council, any questions for Chris?
Well, if only to stop that, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the F-350 for the quoted $51,000 and change for Public Works.
I'll second.
Got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, reports. Mayor, does have anything for council or committee to share? Nobody? I would like to,
Yes.
what?
Vote tomorrow.
Oh,
If you haven't already, get out and vote. And note, voting does not take place at City Hall this year. All voting in Mount Vernon, if you have not voted yet, all voting in Mount Vernon takes place at St. John's Church on the south side of town.
From 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., right?
Sure.
And I would like to commend the council. I know tonight was not easy, all the work leading up to tonight was not easy. Probably some of the ramifications from tonight will not be easy, but this is what
Was
we're
it
signing
boring?
for.
That's what we get paid for.
Yeah. But I mean, in all seriousness, it's not easy, right? I mean, you know, living in this town, I mean, I'm sure there's gonna be some preventive ramifications. Some dirty looks, I mean, some accusations. I would invite everybody to stay off Facebook for a while.
I have no blame for negative to the top and nobody for positive to the top.
But kudos to everybody involved. Everybody has obviously a copy of Chris's report, so if he gets added into it, he can send a follow-up email or anything. Otherwise, anybody else have anything?